It's time to get to the bottom line.
Here's the bottom line.
Here's the bottom line.
We need to get to the bottom of this.
Get to the bottom of this.
We've got to get to the bottom of this.
The bottom line on the Mark Cox Show.
That's the only way we're going to get to the bottom of this.
That's the bottom line.
Truth! You can't handle the truth.
We are joined today in studio by 22nd Ward Alderman Jeffrey Boyd. He and I go way back. I used to cover him a lot when I worked at Channel 4 News, and it's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you for the invitation. It's good to see you again.
You bet. Thank you very much. So the issue that's kind of top of my mind because of the conversation we had last hour was this idea of re-entry of the city into the county. Far-fetched, inevitable. Where do you stand on it?
Well, in conceptually, I think it's a great idea. Now, how we get there is, what's going to make it real challenging. I mean, when you just think about all the cities across the country, almost every city is within a county. And we're holding on to the nostalgia of the Civil War. And that doesn't make sense anymore. In my mind, merging with St. Louis County should have some cost savings. Right now, for example, the health department. So we have the City of St. Louis Health Department, County Health Department, and then we have St. Louis County Health Department. If there was reunification, we would have one health department. We have two collectors of revenues. I mean, we do have duplicity of services, so there's a lot of merit in maybe consolidating services. And when you look at the City of St. Louis right now is currently trying to raise trash fee by $3. We're raising taxes for police and so on and so forth. It's a tough situation out here financially for a lot of cities, and we need to start figuring out how we can work better together.
Wouldn't that
no pun intended?
I just wondered if you got paid to say that or not. I'm just teasing. Wouldn't that sharing of resources, though, mean that the county resources are going to pay part of the cost the city is struggling to deal with right now?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't have all the data on that. But at the end of the day, we are one region. And until we act like we're part of one region, it's going to be hard for us to rapidly move forward.
So I look at things like the soccer stadium and maybe to a greater extent the Rams stadium that's sitting down there empty now, the Edward Jones Dome, where the city has repeatedly gone to the well and asked for people to approve this bond issue or this TIF agreement, something that abates taxes. The Show Me Institute did a study that showed the city had given up $800 million in taxes since 2000 through various abatements and all of that. At some point, somebody has to stand up and say, maybe we haven't had great leadership in the city that's led to some of these problems. Not all of them. I understand there are outside economic pressures, socioeconomic pressures. There's been some bad management in my mind of city government.
Yeah, there has been a challenge with tax incentives. I'm excited that we're looking at incentive reform. There are certain neighborhoods that have really taken advantage of a lot of tax incentives and may not need it anymore, or at least they don't need it to the level they've been getting it for the past 20 years. When you have neighborhoods like mine, Wells Goodfellow, Hamilton Heights, we have probably half of our community vacant lots and vacant buildings. Tax abatement TIFs were designed for distressed neighborhoods. Now we can look at downtown Central Quarter that's not distressed. Now, you can find pockets or a building or maybe a half a block that's distressed, but not at the magnitude of our larger neighborhoods where crime is rampant. And if we want to abate and do better with crime, we need to focus on rebuilding our distressed neighborhoods. That's what the incentives are all about.
Strikes me that ultimately we may not get to decide because it looks to me like there are people that are wanting to kind of go around us and put this to a statewide vote.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I look at that as could be good, could be bad. Number one, I believe in local control, and I believe the local people should have a say-so on their governance. But at the end of the day, when you really look at the big picture, racism, social economic depression, people hold on to those and it stagnates us. And sometimes it takes somebody from the outside to come in and say, look, enough is enough. Here's what you're going to do. It took a statewide referendum for the city of St. Louis to have control of its police department, which it hadn't had control of since the Civil War.
Right.
That's absurd. We cannot continue to live in the past. We need to figure out strategies on how we can work together and move this region forward. We have to stop operating in silos where there's St. Louis City against Chesterfield, St. Louis City against Edwardsville, St. Louis City against Frontenac, Ladue, and so on and so forth. And really, to me, the bigger picture than reunification of St. Louis City with St. Louis County is the reduction of so many municipalities in St. Louis County. That is absurd.
Well, it might be, but I mean, it's like somebody would say, not in my backyard. So which one of those municipalities and who gets to decide whose city boundaries get erased? I mean, that's a big question. Right. Who do you turn that power over to? I don't know what the answer is to that.
Well, you have, and I'm not an advocate for Better Together, but you do have an organization that's out there that's working on it. The governor, the state legislator could assign a commission to work on it. We go through redistricting every 10 years, right? And it's a tough fight. You know, no one wants to give up the good portion of their particular ward. No one wants to take a bad portion of a particular ward, but it has to happen. It's a necessary task that we must undertake. And it's to a point in our region, in my mind, that it's a necessary task that we have to take in looking at consolidating some of those municipalities in St. Louis County. When you have a municipality that only has about 800 residents and they have their own police department, how are they surviving?
Yeah.
Here's how they're surviving. They're writing a lot of tickets, and poor people have become ATMs. And we need to stop that. And we need to merge. I can't remember the name of the two, but it was one of the villages, Velda Village and
who just merged.
Well, there was a merger.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
What a great opportunity. Talk about leadership. And if we just start there and keep moving, maybe you can look at Wellston and Pagedale and University City and Clayton of possibly merging. Now, I know they don't want to.
A lot of fiefdoms there. You're assaulting.
Absolutely,
and it would be the same.
Insult.
But it would be the same in the city, though, wouldn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
If you talked about bringing the city in and dissolving half of the elected positions, and instead of having, how many wards do you have? 28.
28.
So instead of having 28 wards, you only had
14.
4 representatives going to St. Louis County Council. I mean, there would be fisticuffs.
Well, I probably wouldn't support giving up all the elected positions, like all the alderman positions in the city of St. Louis, and have maybe one representative from St. Louis County. I think every municipality should have their elected government and be part of one county. What the city of St. Louis have done, and people have complained about it for years, we are 28 aldermen. But in 2021, when we do redistricting, we're going to go down to 14. So we are trying to set a standard. If we can cut ourselves in half, you know, maybe people can look at other options out in St. Louis County as well. We're willing to do it. Well,
Better Together, I would argue, has a pre-designed end that they're trying to get to. I think they see reunification or reentry as the goal, and they're trying to put together the study that gets you there, as opposed to deciding whether or not it's a good idea or not. And that's my biggest issue with it. Before we run out of time, we're here with Alderman Jeffrey Boyd from the city, from the 22nd Ward. I want to talk about what's going on in the special session in Jeff City.
Okay.
So during the regular session, they passed one bill that would stop your minimum wage hike that the city voted on. Now they've called a special session that would basically, I guess, wipe out an ordinance that was passed that wraps protections around what would you say, abortion services? I mean, it was a discrimination ordinance, right? You changed the discrimination ordinance in the city to include people that provide abortion services.
I'm not an expert on that bill, but what my understanding is, we don't want to have people who have had abortions discriminated against.
But how often does that happen? I mean, I guess
I'm not sure, because that's a private decision.
Yeah, but but if it was an issue, we'd have heard about it. I mean, it would be in the Post-Dispatch, and people would be coming forward saying, I wanted to rent this apartment, but somehow the guy found out I had an abortion and he wouldn't rent it to me. I don't remember seeing that being an issue. But if the archdiocese of the city owns property in the city somewhere, and Planned Parenthood wants to come in and rent out the bottom floor, and the archdiocese says, no, I'm sorry, that's against our beliefs, they could be charged under this ordinance with discriminating against an abortion provider. And I think that's what kind of stuck in the craw of a lot of the folks in Jeff City and why they're down there in special session. Now, I don't necessarily agree that it required a special session. They're spending a lot of money to keep legislators down there this summer to try to overturn this issue in the city, but still.
Well, I personally think it's a publicity stunt. And basically, the legislation seems to be pretty benign to me. And the chances of Planned Parenthood wanting to rent something out from the Archdiocese is nil to none of happening, because they already understand the likelihood of that happening is moot.
Yeah, I think it was a publicity stunt to pass it in the first place, because I think it was a cure in looking for a disease. I don't think that a problem existed with that.
So, Mark, if it's not hurting anybody, what's the big deal?
Well, it's a religious liberty issue.
It's a religious liberty issue.
Why would you give special rights to a class of people? You're giving special rights to an industry, basically, as opposed to like this particular healthcare provider gets this protection wrapped around it, and this one over here doesn't.
I don't think it's protection. I think it's a right. It's saying, do not discriminate against me if I had an abortion.
Yeah, but who does that?
I've
never heard of an example of that.
I haven't either, but it may exist somewhere, or it may come up. So sometimes you introduce legislation to get ahead of something.
Yeah, I'm on the city council out in Wildwood, and they brought up an ordinance to us one day that we needed to adopt this language to protect bicyclists from being harassed. So you couldn't go by them and make noxious noises, or you can get charged with a crime for it, right? And I raised my hand and I asked the police chief to come up to the mic, and I'm like, have we had a single complaint about this? And he said, not that I can think of. And I looked at my fellow board members and said, then why the hell are we passing it?
But, Mark, that happens. Bicyclists are pedaling on the roads, and cars come by and they scream at them, get off the road. What are you doing?
Yeah, but we didn't have any examples of that. So we're like, it's like a preemptive strike. I'm
is there an example of the mayor that was charged with hitting a bicyclist because he was annoyed?
That was where, in Sunset Hills?
Yeah.
Something like that? I don't know if they had that ordinance on the books or not.
I'm not sure if it's an ordinance or not, but it's an example of, here you have an elected official, screaming at a bicyclist and end up hitting him.
I think he got clear to that, didn't he?
That's why I was.
It was Sunset Hills, I think.
I have my own problems in St. Louis City.
Jeffrey Boyd, listen, I appreciate you coming in. It's always great to see you.
Thank you. Invite me again.
Absolutely. We'll do it. All right. 314-969-9797. We will get to your phone calls. I'll tell you a little bit more about this health care plan that was rolled out today. It's all coming up on The Mark Cox Show.
This is The Mark Cox Show. Traffic reports at your fingertips. Real-time traffic online. Log on to 971talk.com for real-time traffic updates.
Brought to you by Frank Lita Acura with 0.9% financing going on now. Can't beat a Lita. Online at litaacura.com.
Hey, St. Louis, check out the newest Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men in O'Fallon on Highway K just north of Fisey Road next to Potbelly Subs. Get an unbelievable haircut, hot towel treatment, and hot lather neck shape from one of our award-winning stylists for just $12. Lady Jane's in O'Fallon, it's wicked awesome.
Head out to Espino's. Take advantage of the fact that it is Throwback Thursday. They're going to have something, some throwback issue from their menu or maybe from the cantina that you can check out. They got specials just about every day of the week. 27 different flavors of tequila out there in the cantina. Good stuff. I'm going to talk them into that margarita pretty good pretty soon here, just because I got one dedicated to Dave Glover, which just drives me a little crazy. I'm just teasing. Go check out Espino's. Love the food. You're going to go back. I've got my favorite appetizers, that queso fundido they make that's just out of this world. And they do catering. I know I've mentioned that all the time, but it's important to know. It is a Mexican restaurant, but the catering menu is not strictly Mexican. You can get barbecue or anything you want. If you have a variety of tastes in your house or for your party, they can take care of you out at Espino's Mexican Bar Grill. Just go to their website. Call them at 636-519-0044. They're right there in the Chesterfield area.